Why has the figure of the Mahdi become recently more popular? The Mahdi, meaning the guided one in Arabic, is a figure present in numerous Islamic traditions relating to the end of times. There is no direct reference to the Mahdi in the Quran, only in the Hadith. In both Sunni and Shia traditions, it is said the Mahdi will appear before the Day of Judgment and rule over Muslims for 5, 7, 9 or 19 years according to different interpretations. It is accepted that the Mahdi is of the lineage of the Prophet Muhammad, a direct descendant of Fatima, and that he will restore justice and equality during his rule and end tyranny and oppression. If you're enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe to the Muslim Vibe on YouTube and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video. The term Al-Mahdi was employed from the beginning of Islam, but only as an honorific epithet and without any messianic significance to qualify, by some nomadic tribes, a potential leader that will appear and help them get their homeland back.
The term Al-Mahdi, meaning the one who is rightly guided, is primarily taken from Hadith. The notion that there will be someone who is divinely guided, who is there to provide guidance for other people, is something which is very clearly given in the Quran. The general principle of providing guidance is there, although the term Al-Mahdi is not used. A description of the end of times and how that process of moving to the afterlife will happen is mediated through accounts of apocalypse, the world turned upside down. But then of course more explicitly it's in the Hadith, both in Sunni and Shia sources, that you find the term Al-Mahdi coming and the term associated with this Redeemer, Messianic figure of the last days.
Since Sunni Islam has no established doctrine of the Mahdi, there are different opinions among Sunni scholars. While some, like Ibn Khaldun, even disputed the authenticity of references concerning the Mahdi, others, like Ibn Kathir, elaborated a whole apocalyptic scenario which included prophecies about the Mahdi, Jesus and the Dajjal during the end of times.
In Sunni theology, there tend to be two sorts of positions. There's a more skeptical position about the Mahdi as someone who is a specific figure from the family of the Prophet. The idea of a messianic redeeming figure at the end of time is usually associated with Jesus and the idea of the return of Jesus. Those who do affirm that the Mahdi is a specific figure who is not Jesus, they tend to discuss two kinds of questions. One is, well, who exactly is he? How can we identify his genealogy? Can we even identify the specific person? And the second question is whether that person already exists.
While Sunni Muslims believe that the Mahdi is yet to come, according to the Shia traditions, the Mahdi is believed to be born on the 15th of Sha'ban, 879 CE or 255 AH, and assumed imamate at nearly 5 years of age following the killing of his father Hassan al-Askari. In the early years of his imamah, he had contact with people through 4 deputies, a period known as the minor occultation. After this period, however, the 12th Shia imam did not die but was concealed by God from the eyes of men, a period called the major occultation. The Mahdi became synonymous with the hidden imam and is also called Imam al-Zaman, the imam of our time.
For some reason, we have decided on occultation as a word to render ghaiba in Arabic. And ghaiba literally just means absence. Just like Messianic beliefs are often very common in lots of different religious traditions, so is the idea of a particular, friend of God or chosen one of God for some period being taken away from you so that you don't have access to that individual, and then of returning in this kind of final manifestation of it. The main reasons, of course, which are given from early on is for fear of his enemies. The Abbasid caliphs and the Abbasid court was very familiar with the reports which existed about a descendant of the Prophet who would become this Qa'im, who would rise for justice, because they considered such a figure to constitute a direct threat to their power and their authority.
Various films and shows have played on the idea of false messiah, such as in the Netflix series Messiah, which plays on the human appearance of the Mahdi in Islam to imagine a messianic character appearing in the current era and tie him to the tense political and social context in the Middle East. While Christianity, Judaism, Buddhism, Hindu traditions and Zoroastrianism expect a Messiah at the end of times, that will restore justice similarly to Islam or start a new era. Some other traditions believe the Messiah has already come, such as in the Baha'i faith with Baha'u'llah, the Nation of Islam with Elijah Muhammad and later Louis Farrakhan, and the Ahmadiyya movement with Mirza Ghulam Ahmad. There are many signs related to the arrival of the Mahdi narrated in Hadith with varying degrees of authenticity.
General signs of what you see around you, again, are very much, the widespread corruption, injustice, evil on the earth. Also kinds of things around the world turned upside down, things which are unusual. You have the specific reports which are about, the emergence of someone who is known as the Dajjal, or sometimes is referred to as kind of the Antichrist. It's this idea of someone who has charisma, but is inviting people towards what is bad, is developing a cult around himself, which is taking people away from the worship of God. There's a kind of a lesser Dajjal who is called the Sufyani, who is a descendant, of course, of the Umayyads, Abu Sufyan, who will emerge in Syria, and he also will be calling people to himself, but he will of course be again leading people away from God. He will be leading people away from the Prophet. The opposite side of these kind of negative evil figures, you have the Hassani, the Khurasani, who is considered to be a precursor for the rising of the Mahdi as well, who will then emerge from the east to fight the Sufyani and the Dajjal.
Throughout history, hundreds of people have claimed to be a Messiah from various traditions.
I myself want to reveal something, that I myself is Imam Mahdi, and I am giving you the good news of the arrival.
David Shayler, born 1965, a former MI5 agent, declared himself to be the Messiah on the 7th of July 2007. A few dozen people have famously claimed to be the Mahdi, including some more random occurrences, whilst according to a 2012 study, Iran's prisons had more than 3,000 Mahdi claimants. The most famous Mahdi claimant is probably Harun Yahya, an Islamic creationist cult leader active in Turkey since 1979. He believes himself to be the Messiah and focuses his brand of Islam on close readings of the Quran with dramatic presentations similar to Christian televangelism. He is also the author of the Atlas of Creation. With the current unstable situation of the world, many are seeing signs of the end of times, leading many Muslims to ask the question, when will the Mahdi arise? The answer is uncertain, and it is perhaps a reminder that ultimately the future is only known to Allah, leaving those Muslims that believe in His cause to remain active and prepare the ground for His movement.
The function of those hadith is not necessarily to give you a place and time in a specific thing. They're not predictive in that way. It's about forcing people to reflect upon themselves. If the world were to come to an end, if we were to transition into an afterlife, am I in a situation where I'm prepared for that? And the point is, be prepared. Be prepared. Know that you are accountable for yourself. Know that you're accountable for those around you. It doesn't matter how bad things are, how the corruption is, the injustice is outside you. Reflect upon yourself. Reflect upon the fact that you have a relationship with God.
For more great content like this, be sure to subscribe to The Muslim Vibe on YouTube and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video.